Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome a man I admire, my friend, Michael Kopf.
Wow, this is my crowd. This is my home. I love it. Thank you very much. Thank you, Alex, for your kind, your generous introduction, and for the work that you do day in and day out in the cause of media diversity and media justice. Let's give Alex one more round of applause. This is always my favorite conference anywhere. From that first one in Madison, Wisconsin, 10 years ago, launched to the music of the Tell the Truth Tour. Many of you were there. Raise your hand if you were there. We took it from there to St. Louis and Memphis and Minneapolis and Boston and now Denver, and I've been to all of them, and they just keep getting better. So thanks to Free Press, thanks to Craig Aaron, who runs it with a wonderful combination of passion and action, to its founders and leaders who really made Free Press a force to be reckoned with, and I'm talking about Bob McChesney and John Nichols and Josh Silver and Ben Scott. Let's give them a round of applause. You talk about leaders who made a difference. We could never begin to repay the debt that we owe these folks. But we're going to repay it, and you know how we're going to repay it? By moving toward media of, by, and for the American people. As a commissioner of the FCC for more than a decade, I traveled to a whole lot of conferences and conventions, very different from this one, places where I ran into bevies of special interest types in stuffy suits running up huge tabs on their expense accounts and spending all their time complaining about the evils of public interest oversight and complaining about the terrible burdens of consumer protection. And they would crow on and on about the virtues of the very extremely free market, even as they begged for more government handouts in the form of regulatory giveaways and more merger approvals. And we know what happened. They built their monopolies all across media, from newspapers, television, and cable, now to broadband access, and even to that internet which was supposed to be ever free and ever open. They decimated journalism, threw tens of thousands of reporters out on the street, dumbed down our news, and short-circuited the civic dialogue that Americans must have if we are to have a shot, any shot at all, at overcoming the seriously daunting challenges that face your country and mine. The special interests bought elections. They co-opted the legislative process. They wrote the laws and rules they wanted in Washington and working with ALEC in the state houses. They got government to shirk its number one responsibility, citizen protection, and they made billions of dollars for themselves in the process. They had their way with our democracy. But I do believe change is coming. We all thought it was here after the elections in 2008, but in media and in some other places too, it seems to have gotten derailed. And our job is to put it back on track, and I think it is coming back on track, partly because of groups like Free Press and Common Cause and dozens of others, but mostly because of citizens like you. I hear the voices of diversity beginning to sing, don't you? I hear a rising chorus of citizen power against the outlandish role of money in politics, don't you? I hear people everywhere I go saying, enough. Enough of media monopolies, enough of broadband cartels, enough of locked cell phones and data caps, enough of big telecom telling communities they can't build their own broadband networks, even as those companies refuse to bring broadband to those very communities. Enough of all of this nonsense about how free markets all by themselves built this country, when in fact we built it together. Enough of shutting minorities and diversity groups and women out of the opportunity to own or even be treated fairly on our media. And enough of the Federal Communications Commission blessing industry's cancerous monopolization of our news and information infrastructure. People are saying enough because the ills that we as reformers predicted for so long have become tangible and real in the everyday lives of millions of Americans. And I see this and heard this traveling around the country and talking to people here today. There is change in the air. There is change that can be mobilized. And there is no doubt in my mind that we are at a tipping point in our crusade. And there's no doubt in my mind that we can build the critical mass necessary for needed reform. And there is no doubt in my mind that you and I are fighting all the way for real change. And we fight confident that even in this era, when so few control so outrageously much, we the people can still determine our own future. We fight knowing that in the final analysis, reform, the kind of thoroughgoing democratic change that America cries out for right now, doesn't come from the top down. It doesn't come as a gift from Washington presidents or legislators or regulators. It comes from the grassroots up. It comes because people demand it, organize for it, and then work their asses off to make it happen. That's always been the story. That's always been the story of reform in America. That's where civil rights and women's rights and worker rights and disability rights and LGBT rights have come from the heartland, from you, and that's where media rights are coming from too. This is reform whose time has come, and I want you to say this after me. It's not just yes we can. It's hell yes we will. Thank you very much. Thank you. And now let me welcome to this podium someone who's not only a good friend, but a courageous and formidable voice, a voice increasingly listened to around the country against the havoc that communications monopolies have wreaked upon this country of ours. She's a professor, lawyer, public servant, author of books, articles, op-eds. She has a great new book out, Captive Audience: The Telecom Industry and Monopoly Power in the New Gilded Age. And you need to read it, but before you read it, you need to first help me welcome her and show her how much we appreciate the fight she is fighting for us. Here comes Susan Crawford.